special thanks to the City of Scottsdale for giving us this project and allowing us to work with them. So tonight we're going to be presenting two parts of our report. Nicole will be presenting on alternative fuels, specifically compressed natural gas, and Kyle will be presenting on the energy side and how to be more efficient. Let me work this. Okay, okay, that's how it works. As fleet managers probably know, transportation is a very critical operation for city governments, mainly due to its diversity in services, as well as its environmental, social, and economic impacts. To understand these impacts, there are a couple of sustainable metrics that can be analyzed. Some of these are fuel type, emissions, cost per gallon. We chose to focus mainly on the fuel type, mainly because it is a high consumption resource. The City of Scottsdale has made significant investments in their alternative fuels for their city vehicles, mainly in order to reduce environmental impacts within their city. However, they are concerned about the higher capital costs and in comparison to the long-term economic benefits of alternative fuels. For this report, we did focus mainly on CNG, mainly because through our research it emerged as a leader among the alternative fuels. Since most of the vehicles would be converted from diesel to CNG, we decided to kind of give a little comparison between the two fuel types. So for the buying costs, the incremental costs of a CNG solid waste truck is about $30,000, with an average lifespan of about 12 years. When analyzing the maintenance costs through our research, CNG in comparison to diesel had increase in cost as well as decrease in cost in the results. We believe these unclear costs kind of represent factors that are in flux due to maintenance learning curves as well as like new diesel emissions equipments. These can change how the cost for maintenance changes. For the market, overall natural gas prices are stable due to the high production of natural gas within the United States as well as their efficient systems of, I can't think of the word, moving the natural gas, yes. In comparison, diesel historically has been relatively volatile in their prices and not as reliable. So we first focused on Tempe. And for Tempe, we looked at their entire solid waste fleet, which has about 36 vehicles. And they are composed mostly of side and front loaders with a couple of rear loaders in there, which is very similar to Scottsdale's distribution of their solid waste trucks. So through this research, we were able to determine that side loaders had the least cost per mile and per gallon due to the 70% of the category being run on CNG. And you can see that in the graphs. The next city that we focused on was Denver. They composed a report that analyzed about 1,000, their entire fleet, which was about 1,098 vehicles. And out of those vehicles, they determined that about 491 of them would be possible to convert to CNG. In their analysis, they used a base of $1.55 for their CNG fuel price, and they were able to determine that out of those vehicles, 259 of them would get paybacks within 5.1 years, with an average saving per vehicle of about $3,500. Through our research, we also were able to find a report by the U.S. Department of Energy, and the report was called "The Business Case for CNG for Municipal Fleets." And through this report, they analyzed the profitability of converting fleet vehicles to CNG using a VICE model, which is a model that they created themselves, and it's pretty much a vehicle and infrastructure cash flow evaluation. Through the report, they analyzed 3 vehicle types: waste trucks, transit buses, and school buses. They were able to come up with a lot of data on through this analysis, but I'm just going to focus on a few things. They were able to determine that large transit and refuse fleets tend to be more profitable when they're about 75 plus. And you can kind of see this in the graph. It might be kind of hard to read, but they compare fleet sizes with 50 school buses in comparison to like 100 school buses, and they do that with each vehicle type. And let's see here. Through this, they were the payback period for these fleets only rises above 5 years when the diesel prices drop below $2.25. So overall, if with the diesel prices increasing, the payback period is really reduced. So for recommendations, we believe through our research and analysis that conversion to CNG is economically viable, but not all at once. This is due to a lot of factors. Mainly, converting all at once will lead to the end of the life cycles of these vehicles ending at once, which means higher capital costs throughout the years, and also due to budget restraints. So we also noticed that modification of these vehicles is not economically viable, mainly due to the possibility of no payback, and these vehicles would not have a warranty. So pretty much they'd be converted halfway through their life cycle, and you really wouldn't be able to see the payback at the end of the life cycle. So through that, we believe it is important to phase out diesel vehicles for CNG through attrition, do it gradually, and we also recommend having larger CNG fleets, mainly due to the profitability and resilience of these fleets. We also recommend maintaining diversity within your fleet, so do not converting completely to CNG, mainly because different vehicle types are more efficient running on different fuels. So for example, large buses and trucks tend to do better on CNG and liquid natural gas, which is propane. Vans and vocational trucks can do better on biodiesel and electric hybrids, as well as the smaller vehicles, which are like the administrative and sometimes the police vehicles, where they really aren't being used as often, aren't covering as many miles, are really good on electric or hybrid fuels. I don't really know the situation Scottsdale is in, but for the USDE report, they did a lot of their analysis based off of federal tax credits, and they were able to determine that with these federal tax credits, the payback period was significantly reduced, and I think that will be really beneficial for the City of Scottsdale. We also believe to improve efficiency, it is important to use the new CNG vehicles on the longer routes of the solid waste trucks, and the shorter routes for the old diesel ones, and that will improve efficiency and mileage. And that is the end of the CNG conversion.
So once again, my name was Kyle, and when the City of Scottsdale approached us, they had asked us to do the two-part review of both the CNG conversion, but also of improving the energy efficiency within their infrastructure. So I took over the energy efficiency because in my interest in schooling has really been focused on how to improve energy. I think that is a big sustainable step as we move into the future. So what they had initially wanted us to do was the City of Scottsdale is began to earmark their funds to make these big purchases, high dollar purchases on improving their HVAC systems, the AC and the heating and cooling systems, trying to convert away from costly and inefficient water heaters into tankless water heaters, and spread this throughout their entire infrastructure. So with that in mind, as we met with the City of Scottsdale, with Kevin and with Mary Ann, they began to provide us with the information that we had used to perform this analysis. One of the things I began to notice right away was that a lot of this was very macro information. So it was a lot of what total costs per building were. So as we began to look into this, more information, more feedback we were getting from Scottsdale was that this is the extent of what a lot of their reporting was. So with that in mind, I was really beginning to struggle with how we were going to come up with return on investments to determine if they spent $500,000 to buy this HVAC system, how long was it going to take before that became cost effective for them, or how long was their return on investment or cost benefit analysis? If we weren't able to determine what was going to be the total savings overall within each of the buildings that they had wanted to make these updates on. So we kind of shifted the overall focus of what we were looking at into how to improve the overall monitoring of their system. We kind of went with the old axiom of it can't be measured, it can't be monitored, it can't be measured. So with working with them, we were able to identify 8 locations that have great potential to be improving their energy efficiency. However, because we don't know what their overall their energy profile is in each of these locations, we don't really know what to make for those recommendations. So for example, you have, which I'm going to slaughter the name, I apologize, the Paiute location, which is actually 8 different buildings, but they all run off of 1 meter. And 2 of those buildings are being rented out. But because they don't know what each building's energy use is, it comes as one single bill. The City of Scottsdale is just paying that bill outright. So which means, in essence, you do have 2 buildings that are kind of getting free electricity. And then you also had, you had a whole bunch of ballpark lights, pump houses, stuff like this that are using energy, and it could be incredibly efficient, it could be incredibly inefficient, but at this point, we really don't have any idea to base on that judgment. So with that in mind, we went off of our recommendations of, we feel it would be better to start this process by doing some sub-metering within their infrastructure. So going out to these locations and determining, is the ballparks at Mountain View Park, are they efficiently using lights? Can we update these light bulbs to LED, or is it not going to be any type of benefit? And by creating this sub-metering program, they will be able to better manage their energy use, which will then downstream lead to better implementations of efficiency policies and also provide them with their return on investments. Now, what we had initially, this project really kind of went back and forth. We had a whole bunch of troubles, which was kind of exciting. But our initial recommendation was, we were just like, Scottsdale can do this. Scottsdale is, their infrastructure's fantastic, their departments are great, just have them start the process and go forward. And with that in mind, we kind of began to research what would be the best meter, how to do it, what the engineers would need, and we came across a report that ASU had recently gone through a similar conversion. So, not wanting to do the work twice, I reached out to Rob Vanderling, who was the senior engineer on this project, and discussed with him what they had done in this process. And he had provided us with data and feedback that it's not as easy as I thought that it was. My theoretical knowledge was this perfect box and it's going to be great. The actual knowledge is that a lot of buildings have been designed to not be sub-metered. They are designed to have just one power box, and that's it. So it actually is going to end up being a lot more of a time and investment for the City of Scottsdale to implement this program on their own. However, we did find out that there are, we did find out there are several companies within the Phoenix market that do these services. Most of them actually do these initial services for free. So there are 3 levels of energy audits that are performed. The first one, they just come in and they just look at your structure and be like, this this is what you're doing. The second one is they come in and they perform some, base reviews. They look at what this infrastructure is and they have recommendations. And then the third energy audit is actually an investment grade audit, where they come in with all the equipment, they set it up, they monitor it for several weeks to determine what would be the best policies. And they do these services for free. There's two of the major ones here in the Valley that, based on our reviews and our research, the recommendations are is Climate Tech and Train. They both work with energy. Climate Tech does a level 3 audit, which is the investment grade audit. They do that for free. So they will come in, they will do the research, and they will tell you what you need to do to improve your energy efficiency. Now, they do also a service where they will come in and they will perform these upgrades for you, and they will guarantee your savings, or else they will pay the difference. The way that they do this is that it is a long-term contract. So they calculate what your energy costs are going to be for, let's say, 10 years, and what your savings are going to be, and then they take your savings as their fee, and then at 10 years, you are then moving forward with the energy efficiency. However, like I said, if they don't make the benchmarks that they have set for you, they cover the differences between what the benchmark is and what the actual cost is. Train, on the other hand, just does a level 2 audit, where it's very similar to level 3, except they don't do the overall guarantees. They'll come in and they will do the reviews for you. They have similar programs. But like I said, it's just not quite as extensive as what Climate Tech does. However, if Scottsdale doesn't necessarily, because I know I hate commitment, so if they're not necessarily wanting to make these long-term investment commitments with these companies, they still do have the option to go and do it themselves. These ASU, when they went through and did their submetering process, they actually did submeter. It was a very different dynamic because of what their overall project and goal was. It wasn't so much necessarily being driven by cost reduction, more of energy and information, energy reduction and informational paces. So they actually did a lot of the submetering themselves. They used the various industries, the various E51C2 submeter, which is the same one that the City of Scottsdale would probably want to employ. And they're able to set it up at all of their different junction boxes to determine what their energy usage is. So the recommendations, like I said, it's not necessarily based at this point on what is going to be your overall returns, because there isn't really going to be a way to sit down and jot down, this is how, if you put in this amount of money, your return is going to be this. However, doing the submetering is the gateway to better information, which is then in turn leads to the downstream process of having with better information, you'll be better returns, you can make better decisions, you can implement better energy policies, and you can achieve your goals of improving energy efficiency by taking the small step at this point, which will lead to major long-term improvements down the road. Did you have any questions?
Is this the time to open it up?
Yes.